Right, I wanted to do a little video on breeding and put it out now in case it impacts your strategies going forward. And I'll put a lot of this info on the rules and notes page on the league pages. But all right, so the season will end and I'll pay out the prize money. And then between seasons, everyone's money will go back to equal for season two. So for example, everyone will have, say, $1 million. The stable rosters stay the same though. So the horses you own this year, at the end of this year, you'll own at the beginning of next year. So after the season, there will be, I'm thinking a 3-week breeding period. And then after those 3 weeks, I'll have to get stuff set up for the next season and we'll just have an off season. Okay, so only horses aged 4 to 9 can breed. And after the season, everyone will age up. So the 3-year-olds will become 4-year-olds. So any horse that's on a stable now, since they're all 3 and up, will be 4 and up next year and can breed. But remember, we'll have a draft for 2-year-olds. So there'll be 3 at the end of 3 at the beginning of next year and won't be able to breed. Remember also that they only race until they're 7. So after that, they'll retire from racing, but you can breed them when they're 8 years old and 9 years old if you want. I decided that the offspring will immediately become 2 years old so that you guys don't have to wait 2 or 3 years to race your horses, because that would have been super lame. You'll remember that there are generations of horses that have been generated that are 1 year old and newborns. But the ones that you breed will automatically just become immediately 2-year-olds. The owner of the mother is considered the breeder and owns the offspring. So there's 2 ways, I guess, to breed them. One is the easy way, and that's to breed 2 horses from your own stable. So Jimmy could say during this 3-week breeding period, hey, Chris, I want to breed Nerd Alert and No Comment to each other. That's it. That's easy. Just 2 from your own stable. Of course, 1 male and 1 female. The other way is you can pay another owner to breed your female horse with their male horse. And so remember, the owner of the mother gets the offspring. So this was an example from after the Kentucky Derby last week. Macy asked about breeding, and I said that, for example, he could. Here's a 7-year-old female that Macy owns, Ginkle Winker. If he says, man, I'd really like to breed her to the Kentucky Derby winner, he can offer to pay Nate some amount of money to breed the Kentucky Derby winner Lemke with Ginkle Winker. And then Macy could name it Ginkle Lemke or whatever, but Macy would own the offspring. So what will happen is the season will end and everyone's money will reset, let's say to like $1 million. And then people can breed horses within their own stable or start making these negotiations with other people. So say, Macy offers to pay 1,000 and Nate says, no, I'd like 500,000, and they land on 5,000. So here's the hypothetical. They start the season at $1 million, and then Macy pays Nate 5,000. So after the transaction, before race day number 1, Nate will now be at $1,005,000, and Macy will have paid the $5,000 to Nate. So that could be another way for Nate to make money as a breeder, or anyone to make money. But in this instance, Nate to make money as a breeder. But then Macy will own the offspring. Then Macy with the offspring can choose to keep them and race them when they become old enough later in the season, or can auction them off. So when we have the auction draft at the beginning of next year, Macy could choose to put Ginkle Lemke in the draft and might raise money that way through selling horses. Okay, so then you'll recall that 2-year-olds don't race at the beginning of the year. They don't until later in the season. So that'll still be true with the offspring. The 2-year-olds won't race until later in the season. Oh, I should mention that when you guys are negotiating with each other uh, for breeding purposes, it can be on via text message or email, or maybe we'll go back to getting that Slack thing set up. So you'll just have to let me know or let everyone else know how you'd most like to be contacted so that I can post it on here just for those purposes. All right, so in real life, uh, the mother would be pregnant for about a year and then nurse for about a year and would probably never go back to racing and would just be retired from racing. So we're going to do it a little different. Instead, you'll get the mothers back to racing at the same time that the 2-year-olds are back. So if in our hypothetical Macy bred Ginkle Winker, then Ginkle Winker wouldn't be able to race until day 14. But then Ginkle Winker and Ginkle Winker's offspring, Ginkle Lemke in this example, would both be able to start racing in day 14 if Macy kept the offspring. You get both of them back on the same day. Okay. I've come up with, I think, a pretty cool way to incentive. So one thing I was worried about is you guys are going to negotiate the amounts that you pay each other. They're called stud fees. And I was worried that people would be incentivized to keep it secret, and negotiate high amounts with some people, like ridiculously high amounts with some people. And anyway, I don't know, keep it secret. But I think I came up with a cool way to incentivize you guys to breed them early and announce the stud fees earlier. And it's consistent with what happens in real life. As you guys have learned, in real life, horses get faster as they get older. But the way that they say how old a racehorse is they all age up on January 1st. So if your birthday is on January 1st, like if you're a 2-year-old and your birthday is on January 1st, then you turn 3 on January 1st. But if your birthday is March 1st, they also consider you 3 years old on January 1st. So the horse that was actually born on January 1st is 2 months older. And when they're really young, like a 2 or 3-year-old, those 2 months make a big difference. So in real life, horse breeders try to breed their horses at the very beginning of the season so that they are the oldest of the 2-year-olds and the oldest of their generation. So I've created a little early breeding bonus or late breeding penalty. So their expected race score will go up as many as 4 units if you breed them on the first day, and -4 units if you breed them on the last day or announce it on the last day of the 3-week breeding period. Anyway, that should, if you're negotiating with people on days 3 and 4, and you might tell the owner of the male, like, hey, this is my offer, but it goes down if you don't accept it today, because the offspring won't be as good the longer that it takes for you to breed them. And then once it is announced, there's this stud fee log, which is currently empty, and it's a really bright pink. Maybe I'll tone that down, but it'll say in here how much, I guess in this case, it would be that Macy paid Nate. It'll say how much it was and for what horses, so that the market will not be such a secret and you guys can see how much you paid each other. Okay. Just another couple rules. So remember, they retire from racing after 7, but you can breed them when they're 8 or 9. If an 8 or 9-year-old male breeds, you have to keep them for the entire year. So they turn 8, you can't just breed them and then retire them. You can either choose to retire them completely, in which case they'll just be off your stable. But if you use them to breed, then you have to pay to keep them the whole year. But since you're not paying for a trainer, some of you guys have probably seen the cost tab. They're really pretty cheap. Horses that are racing cost more than horses that would require more vet fees, versus horses that are healthy but not racing. Those are the cheap ones to keep. So anyway, but the rule is if you breed them, you have to keep them for the entire year. I wanted to create a system also where you had to kind of weigh the cost benefit of breeding males. So there's going to be a very mild fatigue for breeding for males, and I think it'll be a season-long fatigue of like 1 or 1.5 per breeding instance. That's just something you have to balance. Finally, one other rule is the maximum amount a male can breed in a year or over its lifetime. I just wanted to put a cap on it. You can breed it 4 times within its own stable. So for example, let's say we were looking at Jimmy has No Comment. Jimmy could breed No Comment with Nerdler and Charmer and Genre and Whoville, but then not also Renegade Chop, just 4 times within its own stable. But then 6 times in a year total. So he could accept stud fees, maybe 1 from Zach to breed Factoid and 1 from Nate to breed, or Andrew to breed Thereupon I Linger, for 6 total in a year. And then a cap of 15 in a lifetime. And then I did want to mention, right now, all of the horses are not related to each other. And I'm going to put on this page who the father and mother of the horses are. It's called a sire and a dam. And all of these horses that already exist, it's going to be NA. They're just unrelated to each other. But when you guys start breeding them with each other, you know, it'll be populated with who the father and mother is. There might be an incentive to breed outside your stable some and not exclusively in your own stable, because I'm going to have, they're going to be worse if they're inbred. So that's not going to matter at first. But let's say Kaylin, for a couple generations, let's say she bred Jeffersonian with embellishment, and then the next year did it again. If she wanted to breed those offspring with, you know, she's going to have a stable full of horses that are related to each other. And then she could breed them with each other if she wanted to, but they're going to be a lot worse racers because there's going to be an inbreeding penalty. So maybe there's a benefit to having diversity of genetics in your stable by going ahead and negotiating with each other to breed between stables. I don't know. All right, that's the basics. I'm going to do another video later on, I don't know, more detailed breeding that I don't know, half of you are not going to care about, but half of you might. I might do an example. All right, good luck rest of the way.